The Archons, principalities, fallen angels, demons of the Old Testament, can they possess and control humans? Well, definitely if you start pledging allegiance to them, but we have to remember that the evil one is very keen on hiding, and he pretends that he doesn't exist, and his entities pretend they don't exist. Let's remember he was the top angel, but he got angry once he found out God's plan was to create humans and have them equal to angels. And that was something that he just did not want to accept. And he fell from grace. Him and a third of the angelic hosts. And of course, those who replace the fallen angels are only humans, not angels. Not God's angels are already sinless, but those who replace the third of the fallen angel category are us humans. That's why he has a spiritual difference with us, and he's trying to pretend that he doesn't exist. And of course, the fastest way is to slowly start compromising and somehow being a little bit selfish about yourself and how you treat others, and committing sins. Now, Archons, parasitic entities that feed off human fear. That's why some of the Gospels say, they start off, especially St. John, the beloved disciple of Christ, who also wrote the book of Revelation. He says, do not fear. So they feed off human fear, and we're referring to antiquity as they were referred to in antiquity as servants of the demiurge, or the false god, who stands between the human race and the transcendent God that could only be reached through knowledge of humanity's real nature as being divine. We are made in the image of God, and leading to the deliverance of the divine spark within humanity from the constraints of earthly existence. Kindly support my Patreon account, since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support, and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. The word Archon comes from the Greek word Archon, which means ruler, which was also often used in ancient times as a title of a certain public office in a government. So if we take a look at Archons from a Gnostic point of view, we will understand that in this context they were considered the angels and demons of the Old Testament. The Archons are the creators of the Matrix, hence false reality, though the antiquity they portrayed themselves as the real creators of mankind and the universe. Rulers laid plans and said, come, let us create the man that will be soil from the earth. They modeled their creature as one wholly of the earth. Now the rulers' body have male, have female, and in the face of a beast. They had taken soil from the earth, modeling their man after their body and after the image of God that had appeared to them in the waters. They said, come, let us lay hold of it by means of the form that we have modeled, so that it may see its male counterpart, and we may seize it with the form that we have modeled, not understanding the force of God because of their powerlessness. And he breathed into his face, and the man came to have a soul, and remained upon the ground many days, but they could not make him arise because of their powerlessness. Like storm winds, they persisted in blowing, that they might try to capture that image which had appeared to them in the waters, and they did not know the identity of its power. They called the reality of the rulers the hypothesis of Archons, is an exegesis, an explanation, a critical interpretation of religious texts on the book of Genesis 1-6, and expresses Gnostic mythology of the divine creatures of the cosmos and humanity. The book of Genesis is the first book of the Hebrew Bible, the Tanakh, and the Christian Old Testament. This ancient text was revered among many of the other from the Nag Hammadi library. And the Nag Hammadi library, also called the Chenoboskion manuscripts, or the Gnostic Gospels, is a collection of a number of ancient Christian and Gnostic texts found in Upper Egypt in 1945. The reality of the rulers is believed to have been written sometime during the 3rd century AD. Researchers believe it originated from a traditional period in Gnosticism, when it was converted from a purely mythological state into a philosophical state. The writing is presented as an instruction on the theme of the dominators, the Archons of the world mentioned by St. Paul the Apostle. The express intention of this writing is to teach the truth about the powers that have authority over this world. The story begins with the boast of a demiurge, the supreme Archon, the fallen one, in words attributed to the God of the Bible: "I am who I am, God is nothing separate from me." The reality of the rulers is presented as a learned treatise where a teacher approaches a topic suggested by the dedicatee of the work. The treatise starts off with a fragment of cosmogony, which guides to a revisionist true history of the events in the Genesis creation story, revealing a Gnostic distrust of the material world and the demiurge that conceived it. An angelic revelation dialogue emerges within this narrative, where an angel repeats and elaborates the author's fragment of cosmogonic myth in much broader scope, concluding with a historical prophecy of the coming of the Savior and the end of days. Bentley Layton, professor of religious studies in ancient Christianity and professor of Near Eastern languages and civilizations, Coptic at Yale University, says, "The reality of the rulers, hypostasis of the Archons, recounts the Gnostic story from the creation of Yaldabaoth down to Noah and the Great Flood, and finalizes with a prediction of the final advent of the Savior, the destruction of demonic powers, and the victory of the Gnostics. And as noted by Roger Bullard in his book, The Hypostasis of the Archons, the Coptic text with translation and commentary, the beginning and conclusion of the text are Christian Gnostic, but the remaining of the material is a mythological account about the origin and nature of the archonic powers peopling the skies between Earth and the Ogdoad, and how these ancient events influence the destiny of man." Although not related to this point, it's possible that the so-called Archons were somehow connected to the ancient Anunnaki. Food for thought. This is from Ancient Code on Humans Are Free. Please leave your comments, and thank you for your support.